This is the Bitcoin Q3 reset, and that is exactly what we need to discuss within today's update video, because I will be giving a detailed update about where I do think the most important support levels for Bitcoin are laying now and what is going to be next for Bitcoin in this usually weak September month. So of course we will discuss the seasonality, but we will also take a deep dive into towards all the other most important Bitcoin price data, charts, latest news hitting the markets here. I will give a big update on my Ethereum trading position, and we will also take a deeper dive into towards Ethereum and altcoins itself later in this update video. So from there guys, make sure to first of all subscribe to the channel. Hopefully we can hit 5,000 subscribers soon. That would be absolutely amazing. And from there we can dive in towards the most important content. Since this is going to be a perfect Bitcoin Q3 retest, because Bitcoin is seeing a nice bounce on the previous highs of this major consolidation phase. And this bounce is something we have seen a few times before. But I do think there's quite a large difference with, for example, 2023 and 2024 here, and that is something we need to honestly discuss in this video, because if you're going to take a dive in towards all the Bitcoin pullbacks this bull market, we can see a few things. First, we have the bull market support band, and second, we have the moving average 50 trend line. And these are going to be the most important indicators for me to be predicting how deep a Bitcoin pullback is going to be, and if Bitcoin is, for example, going to bounce from here. The thing is, in 2023, in Q3 and 2024 in Q3, we saw a larger pullback than what's happening now for Bitcoin, all the way back to the moving average 50 trend line. So that is going to be a big difference, but the similarity is that we are of course bouncing from that previous high, which basically flipped from resistance into support later on. So that is going to be a similarity, but basically the deepness of the pullback isn't similar here. But Bitcoin is bouncing on the bull market support band, and that bull market support band was major support at, for example, this 2024 pullback, the beginning of 2024, before we saw that massive ETF move higher. And basically now we are creating quite a similar setup like we saw over there in 2024. Let me zoom in a little bit on the chart. First of all, we now have this falling wedge basically breaking to the downside in this broadening wedge, and also exactly something similar we saw in 2024 here. Basically the setup is super identical, only the deepness of this current pullback we are seeing now is a little bit heavier, because now we are truly bouncing on the bull market support band, and that wasn't the case in 2024 here. But the bull market support band is going to be huge resistance. So that is why I'm going to say, if Bitcoin on the weekly time frame can hold above this bull market support band, I'm going to be expecting a bounce from that bull market support level, and also initiating that final Bitcoin wave out of the broadening wedge, possibly seeing a retest and then eventually a new move higher, because that's what usually happens with broadening wedges like this. If that is not going to be the case, if Bitcoin is going to see a larger correction, then we have the moving average 50 in play. But this is usually only a level we truly hit once we do see some capitulation in the market, and that is not something we are currently hinting for or something like that. In my opinion, in the market there is not a big reason to see capitulation, but if that is going to happen, then your moving average 50 trend line is going to be a huge and important support level. So that's how I'm currently thinking about the Bitcoin charts. September is now starting off green, so that is actually quite nice. And actually I'm not that surprised with exactly that, because we did talk about this in previous update videos. I did make a lot of update videos about the seasonality basically, and also about the ghost month. And what we did see with this September is that usually in 2017 and 2021, so the other post-halving years, we saw a major crash basically in September, immediately starting within the first days. But now we saw a major crash before September, and now actually a little bounce higher. This doesn't mean we could still see a major crash lower, but I don't think it will be such a large one because we have already seen some downside price action here. So actually I do think in the end September is going to turn out more bullish than bearish. So let's see about exactly that. Also, we do have a lot of liquidity still piling up for Bitcoin at the top side. So once Bitcoin is going to start moving higher, it could go quite fast here. We also have this major Bitcoin CME gap, which still isn't filled up yet. So with most of the liquidity stacking up at the top side, and also this CME gap, which still isn't filled up here, I do think there is topside potential for Bitcoin getting started quite early if we are going to hold above that bull market support band. So that's going to be important, but this CME gap is also looking quite bullish for Bitcoin. Also, Michael Saylor did buy more Bitcoin yesterday, so yet another bullish catalyst for the price action there. And we do truly have a macro storm incoming, with today a super important jobs report coming out. We have the jobless claims tomorrow and the non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate on Friday. And actually I will be live streaming that data on Friday because I do think that's going to be the most important day of the week. So make sure to join this live stream on the channel if you are getting interested in exactly that. And then I do want to give a major update on my Ethereum trading position, because I did open a $15,000 Ethereum trade quite a few days ago, and I do have quite a clear strat about how I'm going to be approaching basically what I'm thinking for Bitcoin, because I do think Ethereum will in the end be following the Bitcoin price action for the current period of time for this September. Basically for Ethereum I've opened some limit orders just in case we are going to see a push lower for Bitcoin, for example. Like stated, I do think Ethereum is going to follow. If you are going to see that capitulation, for example, which is still a possibility, guys, because we do know that in Q3 in 2023 and Q3 2024 we did come back to that moving average 50 trend line. So it is a possibility, and just in case I have set some limit orders for Ethereum, because I do think if you are going to come back to those levels, for example that $4,000 levels or even lower, I do think that's going to be a huge opportunity to long Ethereum basically into the ending stage of this bull market. Because I do think if this month is in the end going to turn out bearish, then Q4 is going to be hugely bullish. And also if this month is going to be bullish, I do still think that October, November and maybe even December are going to be super bullish for Ethereum, most definitely. So that's why I've been opening these trades. And for the other scenario, if we are going to find support on that bull market support band, I have already opened an Ethereum trade, so I basically won't be missing out. And if Ethereum eventually starts moving higher now, then I do already have a nice position, which I'm personally quite excited with. And guys, if you do want to get updated about these trades, make sure to join the VIP Telegram channel. If you do want all of those updates and also other updates from 5 other professional traders and Crypto Rover, make sure to join our VIP Telegram group. You can find the link in the description on this YouTube video. So make sure to check that out if you're getting interested in exactly that. And then I do want to discuss some Ethereum, because Ethereum is still looking quite good in my opinion, but like stated, I'm open for the scenario of seeing an Ethereum pullback, and that is why I did open some limit orders. Just to give an update on this chart, of course, most of the people on the channel know that at the conservative case I did take some profits on my Ethereum spot holdings, and now I'm getting interested in longing Ethereum towards that bull case target, because I do eventually think that we could be hitting that later in Q4. So basically this bull market for Ethereum, because I do think we still have to see the most aggressive and best price action, because that usually comes after breaking the all-time high, and that is something Ethereum did do, but we still did get rejected in that supply zone. Basically we did come back. That's also why I do think in these zones it's going to be a huge opportunity to long Ethereum. But yeah, I do think once we do break through this supply zone, basically we are going to see the most aggressive price action from exactly there. Liquidation heat map for Ethereum does look a little bit different than Bitcoin. In my opinion, Bitcoin also does look a little bit stronger currently, and so does the liquidation heat map. The Ethereum liquidation heat map is in my opinion still hinting at this downside liquidity at that $4,200 level. I would not be surprised if Ethereum is going to grab that in the following days, and from there we have to see where the most liquidity is going to be stacking up, because I also do think $4,000 is going to be a huge level. On the other hand, I must say also at the $4,500 level some liquidity stacking up, but yeah, Ethereum is starting to be a little bit weaker, and that is of course also quite logical after seeing the huge move we have. But during those stages in the market, I actually do think the most opportunities are laying at exactly those stages. Once Ethereum is going to show some weakness, that's where you do want to be longing, because eventually we are going to see a lot of strength later in this cycle, in my personal opinion. Altcoins versus Bitcoin, so the others market cap versus the Bitcoin market cap, is actually showing a golden crossover on the chart. And that's going to be bullish, because once we saw this getting started for Ethereum, we of course saw a major rally. So for altcoins, something similar could be following next. Others are of course the smallest altcoins, so the market cap of the smallest altcoins compared with Bitcoin. It's definitely no altcoin season yet, but we are getting quite close, and I do think eventually we will be hitting this altcoin season box. We could be staying and trading there for a little bit longer, but ultimately that is going to be a phase where you do want to be offloading some of your altcoins and do want to be taking some profits. So probably this is going to be one of the last moments where you can be accumulating altcoins quite cheap. So remember that I do think that massive altcoin season is still going to come later in this cycle in Q4. I do think so. And guys, that was it for today's update video. I hope you guys enjoyed today's update video, and I will see you guys within the next update video tomorrow.